Pedri is one of the rare midfielders who makes football look quieter. And that's exactly why people underrate him. Because if you only watch football for highlights, you'll miss his entire game. Pedri doesn't dominate you with power. He dominates you by making the next pass easier for everyone else. And here's the test that always exposes it. Barcelona without Pedri don't just lose creativity, they lose rhythm. You could see it recently. Without him, Barca looked less fluid, more rushed, and more imprecise. So today we're answering one question properly. How good is Pedri actually? Pedri is 23 years old. He's already played a huge amount of elite football. He's renewed long-term with Barcelona. Inside the club, he's considered a key player. And yet, the debate around him never fully settles. Why? Because Pedri has one problem that constantly resets the conversation: availability. Right now, Barcelona have confirmed he's out with a right hamstring injury, expected around a month. And that matters because Pedri is not a luxury midfielder. He's a structural midfielder. So to understand his value, we need to understand what he actually is on the pitch. Pedri is not a classic deep controller, and he's not a pure final third playmaker either. He's something rarer. Pedri is a tempo midfielder who can break pressure, and his game is built on three things that rarely show up in highlights. First, scanning. Pedri constantly checks his surroundings before the ball arrives. He receives already knowing where the pressure is and where the escape is. Second, body orientation. He opens his body to receive on angles that keep multiple passing lanes alive. That allows him to play forward without forcing risk. Third, decision speed under pressure. Pedri doesn't panic pass. He waits just long enough for the press to commit, and then he plays through it. That combination is why coaches trust him. He doesn't play fast for the sake of speed. He plays fast when the structure is ready. The Pedri effect. Why Barca breathes with him. The simplest way to explain Pedri is this: he makes the pitch feel bigger for Barcelona and smaller for the opponent. Because he constantly finds the free man behind the first press, the interior lane that collapses a block, the third man option that breaks pressure cleanly. This is why judging Pedri by goals and assists misses the point. Yes, this season he has solid numbers, appearances, goals, assists, but even that doesn't fully explain him. Pedri's real value is that he keeps Barcelona playing in the right zones, at the right speed, for the right next action. He reduces chaos, and when you remove him, the game becomes louder. More forced passes, more rush touches, less control. That's why Barcelona missing Pedri isn't just missing a good player, it's missing a stabilizer. Pedri, under Hansi Flick. Under Hansi Flick, Barcelona have leaned into intensity, higher pressing, more aggressive recoveries, faster attacking sequences once space opens. And this is where Pedri becomes even more valuable, because he connects two very different demands: Flick's desire to win the ball quickly, and Barcelona's need to actually control what happens after they win it. A lot of teams can press. Very few can press and then immediately reorganize into clean possession. Pedri helps that transition. He's often the player who, housed as the safe outlet after a regain, takes the first touch that calms the moment, then accelerates the play once structure returns. That's why he's a system player in the best sense. Not flashy, not replaceable, not easily replicated. Pedri is not a volume midfielder. He's not the type of player who touches the ball constantly just to inflate numbers. And he's not someone who dominates games by demanding possession every 5 seconds. That distinction matters, because people often confuse activity with influence. Pedri's control is quieter. He influences games by choosing when not to play fast, by delaying the pass just enough to let a teammate move into space, and by refusing to force actions when the structure isn't ready. That's why replacing him is so difficult. You can replace his position on the pitch, you can replace his minutes, but you cannot easily replace his decision-making profile. And that's the difference between a good midfielder and a player who actually defines how a team plays. Why Pedri makes others better. Another thing that often goes unnoticed with Pedri is how much he improves the players around him. Pedri doesn't need to be the center of attention. He doesn't dominate by volume. He dominates by connectivity. When he plays, teammates receive the ball, facing forward under less pressure with clearer options. That's not accidental. Pedri constantly positions himself to be the second pass, the safety option, or the release valve after pressure. This reduces risk across the entire team. Midfielders play cleaner. Defenders feel safer stepping higher. Wingers receive in better isolation. This is why coaches value him so highly. He doesn't just perform well individually, he raises the floor of the entire system. And that kind of player is extremely rare. Now we get to the part that shapes the entire Pedri story: availability. Barcelona have confirmed he's currently out with a hamstring injury, expected around a month. And this matters more for Pedri than for most players, because his game depends on rhythm, on sharpness, on repetition. A striker can come back and score from one chance. A winger can come back and produce one moment. But Pedri's value lives in timing. When injuries interrupt that rhythm, the invisible details drop. The half-second decisions, the confidence to receive under pressure, the sharpness of movement between lines. And every time that happens, the narrative resets. Which is why Pedri is one of those players you only fully appreciate when he's missing. So how good is Pedri actually? Let's judge him by real midfielder standards. Can he play through pressure without losing control? Yes, consistently. Does he raise the team's level of control? Yes. Barcelona become calmer, cleaner, and more connected when he plays. Does he fit the modern demand of pressing and possession? Yes. He bridges intensity with control. Is he consistent enough to define an entire season? That's the only open question, and it depends on continuity. Pedri is already elite in football intelligence and control. The gap between elite and world-defining is simply uninterrupted time on the pitch. Here's the truth. Pedri isn't underrated because people think he's bad. He's underrated because people don't always know what to look for. He's the kind of midfielder you only miss once he's gone. If he stays available, he becomes the reference point of Barcelona's midfield for years. Not the loudest player, not the flashiest, but the one everything quietly flows through. And that tells you exactly how good Pedri actually is.